Whoever sees this, hit subscribes right now. We get free Teenage Fever. Jail time not included. What's going on, YouTube? It's Knox Hill, and we're back with our reaction series. So today, man, look, as we start to look back and reflect on this situation, I stand by that this is going to be one of the greatest, most pivotal moments in hip-hop history. So forgive me, this is something I'm going to be exploring and talking about in the months and years to come, because it's been that impactful. There's been that many eyes on this, that many people talking about it. But I think one of the greatest issues and things that we need to explore is what is the ultimate impact of this? Because this was a battle on a scale never before seen. And this was a battle where allegations were leveraged that is not something we've really dealt with in terms of Pac and Biggie or Nas and Jay-Z. So what is the true cost and the true impact to all of this and Kendrick Lamar winning? Let's check it out right now.
As the dust begins to settle on the hip-hop civil war, it seems like the real damage is coming into focus. While no blood was spilled, it's safe to say that things haven't been this ugly in rap beef since the days of Biggie and Pac, with Kendrick Lamar basically dissecting every—
Civil war, that seems like a strong statement. Civil war would imply like there's two sides that are, you know, maybe evenly matched or really going at it, right? This felt like everybody against Drake. It was more like an orgies, sort of. Only one person was getting fucked in this.
Haven't been this ugly in rap beef.
I mean, who was on Drake's side? Ak, but Ak was compromised.
Since the days of Biggie and Pac, with Kendrick Lamar basically dissecting every aspect of Drake's identity and not only holding up a mirror to Drake to look at himself, but show the world what he believes to be the real man behind all the fame and fortune. In Euphoria, Meet the Grams, and Not Like Us, hip-hop was given 3 of the most blockbuster violations of an artist that the culture has ever seen. And while Drake did put up an admirable fight, he just—
What about 616?
Didn't have the ammo to counteract what Kendrick was putting out there. As a result, only diehard stans of Drake would realistically argue that he'd escaped unscathed from this, or that he even competed on the same level.
Who is rapping better?
I think that Kendrick is rapping better.
No, you think Kendrick is rapping better? You think he's putting out better songs? That record is not that good. I don't know what the— That record would have been amazing if Drake really does have one. He did rap about it. Now y'all saying you mad he rapped about it. What the f y'all talking about?
Hit with over 1 million dislikes on his diss track / concession speech on The Heart Part 6, the aftermath of Kendrick's assault on his image has basically left Drake stranded on an island where he faces a shift in public opinion on one side and the wrath of his peers on the other. And while
I've talked about this a few times, on the East Coast, it's late in the summer now, they're still playing Not Like Us.
This potentially has major ramifications for Drake going forward, it also might be the beginning of a major cultural shift. Let's break it down. For starters, Kendrick's dismantling of Drake's public image has people assessing whether or not he was really ever truly a part of the culture, or simply someone who just exploited it for financial gain. An artist whose music always focuses more on the personal rather than political, and often retelling meaningless stories rather than something of substance, Dot's continued use of the existing narrative that Drake is a culture vulture has people talking about Drake in a whole new light. A man whose main gripe with Drake has always been his refusal to show up for black issues, Ebro explained that Kendrick's exploration of Drake's mixed background wasn't just race baiting, as some people have tried to paint it. Instead, it was used to explore the ways he stands for nothing in a culture that was born of the need to communicate important ideals to the masses.
The reason Kendrick doesn't like Drake is beyond just, I don't like you as a person, which he said that too. He doesn't—
I hate the way that you walk, I hate the way that you dress, I hate the way that you talk.
like what Drake represents in hip hop. He doesn't like that this individual is not authentic, doesn't represent anything of value to black heritage and black culture, isn't in touch with his blackness enough. I think that is also an important detail, because hip hop, as we know it today, is an extension of the black nationalist movement. It is a tool to share information and educate ourselves when the establishment doesn't do so. And also to make sure that we are represented.
Listen, hip hop has always had a very anti-establishment message, and it's been an opportunity for underprivileged black communities to spread awareness and to rise up and to empower themselves and to use their words and their music as an outlet and as a way to deal with this, you know, massive indifference and to deal with issues and to have biting social commentary.
It is a tool to share information.
I will say, in terms of when you step back and you look at the wide range of hip hop nowadays, it's obviously greatly grown. It's now a global phenomenon, right? It has its roots in American hip hop, NYC, and the block parties in those days, but it's definitely grown to become something greater than that. And I feel like different cultures and different races have embraced hip hop and have now used the medium of rap music to express themselves in their situations, in their communities. Look at the Indian rappers coming through, right? Look at the rappers in Japan. Look at the rappers in Africa that are killing it. Look at the Latino rappers, right? Look at the reggaeton movements, the Daddy Yankees of the world, the Tego Calderones from back in the day. I mean, it really has become more global. So I don't think you can put hip hop in the same box as what it used to be, is what it's getting put into now. But again, that's a more nuanced conversation. In terms of the roots and appreciating the origins of hip hop, I think as an MC myself, and obviously it's different for me because, you know, my melanin levels are very different, but you have to always appreciate the roots and the history and where it comes from. And I think it's very important to pay homage to those roots and to further that education and to further the movement of hip hop.
And educate ourselves when the establishment doesn't do so. And also to make sure that we are represented towards each other and for each other. That's a part of what the hip hop thing is and the basis of it.
But it goes deeper than that. As in the wake of Kendrick's comments, critics are beginning to wonder if Drake only uses his black identity when it stacks the odds in his favor.
You being a mixed person, explain to people from your perspective the difference in between how Drake does it in this hip hop space as opposed to somebody like J. Cole.
You know, J. Cole spends his time doing commentary about society and about his community and the places he comes from, which is
the issues within our
the
culture.
black heritage part of hip hop. J. Cole is in touch with that and understands the importance of that. One of the issues that I think even the OVO team has had was the Childish Gambino thing when I was up here talking about, yo, bro, don't on This Is America because you don't ever have anything to say, which is once again the indictment of Kendrick.
Very interesting that Gambino got brought up because obviously we covered the Gambino diss and the history between him and Drake. And This Is America was originally written as a Drake diss.
Kendrick is not saying Drake is not black. Kendrick is saying you only act black when it's time for you to use blackness to make money. When it comes to any other black issues or black anything, we don't see you.
By using another biracial rapper like J. Cole as an example, in my opinion, Ebro perfectly depicts how Cole takes on the cultural responsibility that Drake has avoided for most of his career. All the while, Drizzy has reaped the rewards of it at every opportunity. Now, it's unfair to say that Drake has never shown up for the black community. After all, at the height of the BLM movement, he donated $100,000 to National Bailout. But there's also a case to be made that this is the bare minimum he could have done when you consider the profit he's made from the culture. Ultimately, the issue with Drake comes down to code switching, and unfortunately,
yeah, 100K compared to the millions upon millions that he's stacked.
There are plenty of clips from his past as a child actor where he seems to purposefully distance himself from the black culture to integrate into white environments. Just look at this clip where he mocked the Toronto accent, which takes influence from Jamaican, East African, and Middle Eastern diaspora.
The guys at our school, instead of addressing people like a group, like saying like, what are you guys doing? Say man's like you. It's really ignorant.
Then, years on, he repped that same accent, all the while appearing ignorant of its origins.
Our accents. I don't know who started talking like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet that.
You just dropped Wagwan Delilah.
I literally want to meet the first Toronto man
You said it was ignorant then.
all time. I don't know who he is.
Fast forward to when Drake decided he wanted to be a rapper, and suddenly his disdain for the Toronto accent was gone. Instead, he was claiming it as a part of his culture. But to make matters
Why is it every time I cover anything like this, it just gets worse? There's some new evidence that gets revealed. I think, though, what's a very interesting analysis and look at this is that Kendrick, in terms of the battle, it wasn't just surface level, right? It wasn't you just did these bad things. It was let's dive really into your psyche and how you function and operate. And let's look at what your values are as a human being and your values in terms of music, in terms of hip hop. And for Kendrick, there were a lot of contradictions. And he saw, in his eyes, a grifter, someone who is taking advantage of the music for sales, but never actually furthering the history, the heritage, the culture, and pushing it forward. You know, I think that's the key critique, is that there was never that sort of respect for it. It just felt like Drake was always code switching. And then you have all these countless examples of him like saying one thing and then turning around and capitalizing on it at the same time, and constantly code switching accents and styles in the way that he goes about things. And then you start to think, well, what is the true motivation here? Is there more to Drake, or is it just all shallowly done for sales?
And suddenly, his disdain for the Toronto accent was gone.
What's interesting, though, is that the title list is Kendrick Lamar won, but at what cost? And I was just wondering if there was going to be diving into the, you know, the underage stuff and does that set a new precedent in hip hop and a dangerous precedent? What are the repercussions of all these things? I was wondering if it's going to be more of a meta of not only what Drake has done, but Kendrick and everything else going on, and just looking at just the backlash and downfall overall. But it feels like it's at what cost? That cost being to Drake. So a little bit different than I understood the title to be. So anyways, let's keep it rolling.
Instead, he was claiming it as a part of his culture. But to make matters worse, Drake is simultaneously facing darker accusations. Years before Kendrick started throwing out allegations about Drake in the OVO camp, certain figures had always side-eyed Drake's alleged admiration for younger women. In fact, famous comedian Shane Gillis even predicted his downfall on an episode of Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast in the summer of 2019.
Shane Gillis is Nostradamus? No.
He basically foretold what's now happening to Drake, right down to the
2019,
timeline.
hang on.
I want to be on the record. Drake's going to be, he's on that R. Kelly tip. Drizzy Drake likes him young. Somewhat known already. This is one of those things where you got to say something. Like, remember Louis, that whole thing? We knew about that. And we were just like, I don't know. Drizzy Drake's into the young ones. He's going to get got in the next 5 years.
Notice he mentions Louis C.K. here.
He's going to get caught in the next, literally 5 years from them. And he even said, I want to go on the record that Drizzy likes him. No way.
If you're not up on that story, the famous stand-up was
Shane is an OG.
Run of women in the comedy scene, and everybody knew. Known to affiliate with the younger generation, Drake has some strange ties to teenagers in the past.
So we just texted each other the other day, and he was like, I miss you so much. I was like, I miss you.
Yeah, I've seen this.
I mean, I've only texted him, but he's so nice.
Then you have the whole scenario with Bella Harris.
She was born in 2000, bro. Why the is this flicked up with her in 2016, laying up on her, bro? Then as soon as she turned 18, they took her out on a date, bro.
Now, back then, people like Millie Bobby Brown came to his defense, but they're notably staying very silent these days now that they're not only older, but things that are less defensible as simply friendliness have come to light. As for his interest in Bella Harris, her claim was that he was a fan of women's high school basketball. Like, that's a perfectly normal sentence to say as a 30-year-old man. Now, we are in no way making claims here or trying to imply anything, but between SZA having to clarify that she wasn't underage and Georgia Smith being just 19 when she hooked up with the 31-year-old Drake, the whole thing wasn't a great look to begin with. But now, post Kendrick's exposed attempts,
I mean, 31 to 19, there is a huge difference in maturity, especially maturity in your teenage years.
Drake's Teenage Fever comment section on YouTube is now flooded with the worst claims a musician could imagine.
You say the word, why second guess? I should have stayed. Why did he second guess on Teenage Fever?
No.
Answer me. You say the word, I'm on the way. What word?
I don't want to go to jail.
To go? Y'all gonna look back one day and say,
No.
Oh, it was right there.
An artist who is always focused on the pop charts and therefore the youth, Drake has always
You just can't listen to the discography the same again.
to retain that fan base in his career by moving with that sound. Now, if you want to be a commercial superstar, that's just good business sense. But from a darker perspective, now revealed by Kendrick's diss tracks, it implies that Drake isn't just cornering that market to stay hot, but to retain access to the younger audience. For one thing, it explained why he now has a 26-year-old in Lil Yachty writing the bulk of Her Loss, why he flew out a fresh-faced Ice Spice when Munch popped off, or why it was rumored that he just recently
Well, he helped with, planting the seeds of that plant.
He signed 4 Bats to a 1-album deal. For a clearer example, before the days of Not Like Us, it was easy for academics to throw Drake some bail for focusing on a younger demographic.
I never even thought about Drake is singing about a 20-something-year-old. I was just like, that's what music is. Like, if anybody sung about a 40-year-old, with all due respect, I'll be like, what the f? I think hip-hop is always kind of meant to kind of appeal to that age range. Unless you're going to do like some Jay-Z, you're married and you're doing 444. If you're going to be rapping about partying, going...
I guess that's the thing. If you look at Jay-Z's album, right? Or you even look at like what Nas is dropping. Because Drake is getting older now, right? It just feels like, the saying, once someone turns famous and they become a celebrity, there's that saying that they kind of stop maturing. That's it. Like their growth stops right there because they become so disconnected from the real world and from having those experiences. And it definitely feels like if you look at a lot of Drake's music, whereas when we started with the October mixtapes and everything, him talking about relationships, there was that self-awareness. I feel like he's always had that self-awareness, but I guess what's missing over the years is that sort of that evolution and maturity. It does feel like Drake is making a lot of the same stuff with the same subject matter and the same sort of immaturity, I would say, without that maturation, without just that human growth and that evolution of wisdom and of spirit that you hear on like King's Disease 3 from a Nas, that you hear from 444 from Jay-Z. That type of maturation is missing. And I just wonder if Drake just never really grew up after hitting it as a childhood star, and then obviously he blew up with his music and took off to other levels. You know, has he really had to do that soul searching and that self-development? And I'm doing a greater psychological deep dive, but maybe this explains where he is maturity-wise and maybe why he relates to people that are younger than him. No way am I using that to condone what he's done or to justify anything. I'm just trying to understand where he is. And I definitely think a lot of what Kendrick said, he would have brushed it off if it wasn't for the public backlash. I think Drake really cares more about what the public thinks than Kendrick does. Kendrick has always been focused on the art, and he struck me as a true artist and a true MC. Whereas I feel like Drake is more about the numbers. He cares more about sales. And he cares more about what he's doing and playing the game. So, like, Kendrick levels these disses and these accusations at him. I feel like instead of soul searching, he'll bat them off, he'll make excuses, and, you know, he'll keep doing what he does. But I feel like since there's been such public backlash and he's been trolled on so many levels and called into question on so many platforms over it, he can't escape from it now, right? You can't escape this fate. You can't escape this destiny. It's going to make him look more within. And you can only hope that people can learn from that and grow from that. But I need more information, because at the end of the day, we're a couple months in on this. There's been some serious accusations leveled against Drake and his team. And we'll see where this ends up. No Dr. Disrespect intended. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? What are the ultimate repercussions from this? I think the fallout will continue to happen. Obviously, Drake's tactic so far is that he's going to keep trying to do these collaborations. He's going to sing. He's going to step into other genres. And he's going to keep trying to be successful and do numbers. And hopefully just flood the charts with success. Flood the charts with him doing the numbers that he does. And just hope that over time, as time goes on, people have shorter attention spans nowadays. The internet will move on to other villains, to other people to attack, and he can start to shift the narrative and shift the dialogue in his favor. But I feel like, you know, this is a beef that will be talked about for years to come. You know, this is a legendary beef. This is one that is up there with Pac and Big, with Nas and Jay-Z, with some of the greatest hip-hop beefs of all time. People will constantly be looking back on this situation, and hindsight is always 20/20. And there's going to be a lot of conversations. I'm sure I'm going to be involved in podcasts, discussions, interviews over the years as we look back on this and we start to breadcrumb and figure out where Drake went wrong and what the true impact and legacy is on this situation. It'll be especially interesting when we get that new Kendrick Lamar album too, because Kendrick to me is the one who's really in charge of the narrative right now. He's really in charge of where this goes. So what does he want to do with that? Does he just want to walk away from it off into the sunset like Thanos and just claim that victory and just, you know, he decimated OVO and snapped half of their population out of existence? Or does he want to keep this in people's memories and keep firing shots and do his jabs? I don't know. That's on Kendrick, but we'll find out. Anyways, I'll catch you guys again soon. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting. Don't forget to go cop your merch, knoxhillmusic.com. Support the brand. It really does go a long way. I'll catch you guys again on more content. Let's go.